The South African Council for Educators, SACE, is not just responsible for the registration of educators, but also for the protection of ethical and professional standards for educators, among other responsibilities. In this Child Protection Week, with schools in the country grappling with sexual offences against learners, the role of SACE is upholding these standards, and they're coming under the spotlight. This morning, we're in conversation with SACE CEO, Ella Mokgalane, who is, of course, got a very, very big role to play in all of this. So let's welcome her and ask her just a couple of these questions. It's so good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much, Leanne.
Now, let's have a look at some of the big issues that are surrounding this. SACE, your powers, your duties, I suppose it's good to know those before we get into details.
Okay. The South African Council for Educators is a statutory body established in terms of Act of Parliament, and one of the responsibilities that we have is to make sure that we enhance the status of the teaching profession by registering all the teachers in the country, both public and private, from private and public institutions.
Yeah.
But secondly, we need to make sure that our teachers keep abreast with various developments, and by doing that, we manage a system for continuing professional development for all the teachers in the country. And thirdly, very importantly, we need to make sure that teachers adhere to the Code of Professional Ethics. And by doing that, we set and maintain both the professional and ethical standards within the profession.
In terms of accountability, who do you account to?
We do account to Parliament, but we report to the Minister of Basic Education.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So now we know, and it's just, I think, quite disturbing when we hear some reports that over the weekend, say since its launch in 1995 and its recognition in 1997, the organisation hasn't used the Sex Offenders Register to vet teachers' registers. Who's responsible for this register?
Okay. In registering teachers, one of our responsibilities is to make sure that these teachers are fit for practice. And in doing that, we need to make sure that part of our registration criteria include both the vetting process. We do not do vetting directly. Therefore, we depend on the Child Protection Register from the Department of Social Development, firstly, so that we can protect the children's rights and all that. But secondly, the Sex Offenders Register through the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. And thirdly, criminal record through SAPS. Now, one of the challenges that we are facing is that the Sexual Offenders Register is not yet usable. Even if you check their Facebook, it's there. It's written in red. I think it's an issue of the disjuncture between policy and practice. While this was declared, the register was declared in 2007 by the department, there have been a number of challenges. One, they rely on Department of Health, Department of Correctional Services, your courts, and also SAPS to get data into the register. Now, historically, there's been some challenges because with them relying on that, it meant they needed to clean up the data. They needed to make sure that the quality assure it, they validate it, they update it. And that's where the main challenge is with regard to that.
It is a big worry.
It is a big worry,
where we know that we are sending our children into an institution where you now have teachers. These are people that we entrusting our children with, and they are sexually molesting our children. And there are far too many instances, and you know that. I mean, we don't need to go into details about this. How can something like this, something as vital as and important as this, be taking so long? And why is there such a massive gaping hole in this?
One of the things that I've seen recently with the Department of Justice is that they are concluding their online system, their electronic system. And they've indicated to us and many other stakeholders to say once the system is implementable, we'll be able to start using it. Secondly, the system is manual. You can imagine we're registering plus minus 10,000 teachers per month. And it means we must write to the department physically and fill in the application forms manually for them to capture those forms. It will take years.
But isn't this
logistically?
But isn't this required by law? This
It is
the law.
It is.
So it doesn't matter how long it should take. This is the law. It should be done. Why is it not being done?
From the department side, I can't speak on that behalf. But let me tell you, one of the things that we did as council, realizing the gap, was to say, let's go the route of police clearance. From the 1st of January next year, 2019, all teachers that are registering with us will be required to produce the police clearance. In order to comply with the Sexual Offences Act, the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Amendment Act of 2008, Section 47 is very clear that in the absence of us doing the actual vetting as a licensing authority, one of the things that we need to request from the teachers when they apply is to have the affidavit that they are disclosing that they were never convicted of any sexual offenses in terms of the children, but also in terms of mentally retarded people and all that. Then we need to keep that information so that when the register is ready, we can be in a position to utilize the same information that is kept in our record to verify whether that information was correct or not. If it's not correct, the Act is very clear. The very same Section 47 of the Act is very clear to say, then you can charge those teachers criminally in terms of lying to council. But the police clearance definitely is going to assist us, because from that particular record, we'll be able to get as many information as possible, including the very same sexual offenses for those people that are convicted.
You bring up Section 47 of the criminal law, and this is, I think, the biggest aspect, because this is where you're in breach of the law. And in a nutshell, basically what it states is that a licensing authority may not issue a license, in this case for teachers, without checking the sex offenders register. It's there in black and white. For over a decade, this has not been done by SACE. How can this be allowed? And we've been allowing these sexual predators into our school. And we keep asking the question, why? But why? But what's going wrong? Here's the answer. These people should never have been there. So I mean, we can't account to the Department of Education. This is where you're meant to come in and make things right. I mean, who's going to be held accountable in your position? Are you going to take the blame for it?
In that case, remember, we're relying on the third party, which is the Department of Social Justice and Constitutional Development. Hence, we reflected on this as council to say, while the register is not ready, let's go back and make sure that we demand the police clearance. And I understand, I admit that for quite some time this was not done correctly.
The questions
and that is why...
It's amazing that this has been going on for so long. I mean, I'm not saying this has been happened for the last month, and this is 10 years. So how long have you been in the position for?
Since August.
Yeah, okay, so this is it's a new position for you. But if it wasn't for a parliamentary question questioning why this isn't happening, it would probably have still continued. Am I right?
No.
You think something would have been done?
Because when we went to Parliament, somewhere mid-2017, we declared already ourselves that we have not been doing vetting the way that is supposed to be done. And we are reconceptualizing the entire process. And one of the things that we are looking at is to make sure that we fill in the gap by using the police clearance. In fact, if you read that particular law, criminal law, it's saying you can do that. Even on the website of the Department of Social Justice, it's very clear to say, in the meantime, this is one of the options that you can be in a position to utilize.
Do you have any, just a final question, I'm sorry, I need to wrap, but how many licenses has SACE actually issued without even vetting, without even checking these people out?
We have a register of approximately 500,000.
And the reality is that 5 in 8 children go through sexual abuse of some sort. And 500,000 people just get let into our schools and we have no idea of their past. This has to be dealt with. And we need to invite the Department of Education.
Definitely.
All right. Let's leave it here for now. Ella Mokgalane is the CEO of the South African Council for Educators, talking to us about the role of SACE and the vetting of educators to avoid sexual predatory. The Department of Education needs to also come in and account for this. Let's take a break. We'll see you after this.